Autism, eating disorders, and university. I recently put on my Instagram about the fact that I had finished my semester one of my final year of uni, and someone sent me a message and they said, I'd love to know about like adjustments that you have around your exams and deadlines and stuff to accommodate for your different needs. And I was like, I didn't really realise this. I don't know, I didn't recognise that it would be something that I guess people might find helpful. I think just because I've had adjustments for quite a few years. When I was at school, I had a difficult time at school. So I had adjustments for a long time to accommodate for different needs. But if it's helpful, I'll talk about it. I then put up a thing if anyone had any questions, and I got a lot of questions. So I'm going to try and get through a couple of those questions today. And if anyone has anything else, then just pop them in the comments. But adjustments that I have specifically for exams, I'm allowed to sit in a different room. So I sit in a smaller room. Actually, in my most recent exam, it was just me in the room, and that works much better for me. A lot of that is to do with my anxiety levels, but also my noise sensitivity. If you sit in a room with lots of people, there are so many noise and it distracts me so much. I really struggle to filter out noises. I know that this is part of my autism. All of those noises become amplified, and that can really impact my concentration. And also because I'm allowed a break in the exam, so I can take a couple of minutes, so I get a certain amount of time per hour of any exam. And again, for me that time is an anxiety management time. I get very overwhelmed. I can read a question, but I cannot interpret it. I can't understand what it's asking for a good 5 or 10 minutes. So the extra time just allows me to try and calm myself down and try and process that information. It is something I still find really difficult. I'm also an adaptation for my anorexia is because I need to eat at regular intervals. Obviously, I need to keep my energy levels up, and I recently had quite a long exam. So in one of my breaks, I am allowed to take food in and have that as a snack. Obviously, I take things in that don't have any wrappers on them or anything like that. So I recently took a pot of fig rolls in, which fig rolls are a very good biscuit. So those are things around exams. With regards to deadlines and assignments, I am allowed extensions, but I don't think I've ever taken an extension because for me they don't work. They just prolong my anxiety that I'm thinking about, oh, I need to get this done. Even actually when I have been in a really difficult place of my mental health, I still manage to reach the deadline that's given. I guess I'm quite a structured person. Even if I am having a difficult time, I still stick to a structure. But extensions are there, and actually for me it helps to know that there's the option of an extension if I need it. But I do try to not take them just because it can lead to like a domino effect, but then it impacts the next thing and the next thing gets pushed back. And also I have a propensity to hugely overthink things, so sometimes actually having longer to do them can just drag out that anxiety for me. So that's accommodations that have been made. Generally accommodations at uni, so I'm allowed to record lectures if I want to, and again I really struggle with processing verbal information. I can sit there and a lot is said and I don't take a lot in, and that for me causes a lot of panic because I'm kind of like, I've not taken any of this in. So through the uni support services, I have a recorder for lectures, which I do use quite a lot. I used it a lot more in my first year than I have recently, and it just allows me to try and listen in the lecture but not become overwhelmed that I've missed a lot, because I struggle with verbal processing. I really struggle with it. So it means I can come home, and then if I need to go back and if I think I didn't take anything in for an hour stretch, I can go back and listen to the recording. And that, again, it brings my anxiety levels down about missing things and just accommodating for that. I'm not great at processing verbal information. How do you prepare and handle routine and location change with uni? So I actually don't live on campus. I still need a lot of support, and therefore I have support from my family, but I do find it difficult moving between home and uni. I think that, to be honest, is a practice thing. It's about establishing those new routines and being quite, I had to be very strict with myself. I had to try and apply what I had learned at home in the university setting. And as my nurse frequently says, it's those real life situations that really, that's where sustainable recovery is often made, because those real life situations are always going to come up. But it is by no means easy, and we had to do it in a phased way. So with my eating, for example, I, for the first pretty much the whole semester one, have been video calling my mum when I need to do a snack, and that's for her benefit and my benefit as much as anything else. It keeps me on track, it keeps me accountable, and it takes away an element of anxiety. I do find it difficult eating around other people. It's something I'm working on, but again, these are all things that I think can be done in a phased way. You don't need to be able to do all of these on day one, but definitely finding a structure and a way of keeping recovery going at the pace it needs to go. That was like my number one priority, was recovery it cannot slip this time, because for me a slip quickly evolves into things going catastrophically wrong. I think change is just difficult, but knowing that change is difficult helps me, because when I was going back into my final year, I knew I was going to find the first month overwhelming, exhausting. I knew I was going to be burnt out. But because I knew that, I expected it, and therefore I felt better able to manage it. So I put in things that I knew would recharge my energy. So getting fresh air, spending time with people who feel safe, talking to people. I am very close with my uni lecturers. They're absolutely amazing. I genuinely don't think I could have come back if it wasn't for their support. So I regularly talk to them, and they check in with me, and that really helps me. I know that my uni have a fantastic disability service that I can go and talk to if I need that extra support. I have had a question about having to take time out of your degree and then going back. The question, actually, I'm just reading it behind the screen. How did I cope with taking time away from my degree? I'm really struggling with it right now. Your degree's always going to be there. Uni's always going to be there. Your health is not. I say that, but I am fully aware that it's a difficult thing to be going through. So obviously I didn't do my uni last year. I had to defer the year, but I didn't actually make that decision to defer until January. I was still holding on that I was going to go back, and I'd been in hospital for like a few months. I was waiting on a specialist bed, like things were not good, and I was like, no, I can still do it. It's not easy, especially if uni has been good for you, because for me, uni, it did really help. But it's a very difficult decision to say, actually, I do need to put my health first, especially I think when you have an eating disorder, and part of your eating disorder is telling you that you're fine, you don't really need to, or you don't want to get left behind, you don't want to be missing out on what's going on in uni. It can be really difficult to make that decision, and I was incredibly well supported when I had to make that decision last year, despite the fact that it felt awful. It felt like I was letting everyone down. But like I said, my lecturers are absolutely fantastic. I think they knew that I was feeling rotten about it. And remind yourself that you can get back. You can get back to uni. You can finish your degree. Taking time away, it's a pause. And actually, when I started my degree, I was introduced to a quote which I love. And it is, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And to me, that is kind of sums up my eating disorder, where I need to make time for myself to keep myself well. And if I don't, what happened last year will happen, and I will end up having to take a year out. And whilst I finished my semester one on Friday, I've had to make changes, I've had to make adjustments, I've had to change my workload and manage it differently. And that's not been easy. But I noticed that things were starting to fall out of priorities and all that kind of stuff. Things were starting to not go right. So I spoke to uni and we found a new way forwards. So be flexible with yourself as well. If you need to take time out, you can still do some reading if you want to. You just don't do the assessed stuff. But equally, if you need to completely take time out from reading and writing and everything, give yourself that space, because it's an investment in you getting back to uni in the future. I want to go to uni, but I'm worried about the intense workload. Any advice? Talk to your university, talk to the disability service, talk to your module leader, explain your anxieties and see what they can do. When I first started uni, I had a complete overwhelm. I was like, this is absolutely, it was a lot. I hadn't been in education for a number of years because I've been in hospital. I never thought I would go back to education because I didn't think I could. I didn't think that my mental health would allow it. I'm very stress reactive, and therefore stress for me is it's a vulnerability factor. But I have managed it. I'm currently doing my 3rd year of university, and that has come from support. And I had a meeting in one of my first weeks with the University Disability Service, and they helped me create a plan about when to work, when to not work. That's my big thing, is when to stop working, which actually I've learned is part of my autism. I really struggle with set shifting. So when I start something, I become completely engrossed in it and I lose track of time. It can affect my well-being, my self-care, everything like that, because I become very, very hyper-focused. So these are all things that, I mean, having an understanding of my mental health has really helped, but being able to talk them through has also made a huge difference. And the last question, I've still got more, I've not managed to answer them all, but I hope I've managed to do enough, is fitting meals and snacks in around lectures at random times and over meal times. This is really difficult. And again, this comes from being in a strong enough place to restart, is that I knew that I would have to I'd have to be fairly flexible with the times I was eating. I really struggle with this still. I really struggle if things are off timing. It can lead to a whole host of thoughts in my head. Oh, you've missed the timing now, you don't need it, or it's too early, you can't have it. I still get those thoughts, and I have to be very strict with myself and say, no, I'm not doing this. But talk to your lecturers. I know if I spoke to my lecturers and said that I need to have my snack at 11 o'clock, they'd be like, go and have your snack at 11 o'clock, it doesn't matter. I have found in life, if you just explain things to people, they genuinely are absolutely wonderful. My issue comes from, I don't like causing a problem, being a thing, making anything, so I will just sit there. But generally, I have managed to be more flexible. So I have at times had to swap meals around, what times I'm doing what meals. If it's easier to have a snack in, then I can have lunch early and like 2 snacks later. But that's all come from practice. If I hadn't had that really structured routine before I went back, I don't think I'd be able to make those changes. So structure, practice, being in like a really, really good place, as in there's not, oh, a bad day means I've gone backwards. Actually, a bad day's a bad day, but it doesn't affect what you're doing. And if it does, knowing who to talk to straight away. So my treatment team are hot on it. My university are wonderful. My friends at university are also wonderful, and I know I can talk to them if I'm struggling. So yeah, using support as well. And remind yourself, and this is something that was said to me a few years ago, actually when I was in hospital, and I didn't understand it then, and I do now. Anything you put before your recovery, you'll lose. I didn't get it then. I thought, oh no, recovery should not be the number one thing. Recovery is your life. Anything you put before your life, you will lose. You need to make sure your health is stable, physically and mentally. And university is something you can do once you're in a good place. But do not be forcing yourself or feel you need to go into that situation if you do not feel ready. because if I could do something different, I'd go back to my second year and give myself time that I didn't give myself then, time that I didn't think I needed because I was holding it together. I was still meeting deadlines, I was still doing exams, I was still doing okay, but mentally I was gone. And that led to a relapse that I was in a critical place within 2 months of it. It all spun out of control. So you need to put your health first. But it is possible to do uni. It is. And the brilliant thing about uni is it's something that you enjoy and you're passionate about. And I could talk about psychology all the time. I probably do, to the annoyance of most people around me. It's wonderful when you are in a place and able to enjoy things. But actually, it's something that my lecturer said to me in first year. There shouldn't be shoulds. There's cans and want tos. But if you're ever in a position where you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, and for me, those shoulds caused me to burn out, where I should have read the entire textbook and more, that's when things are starting to get out of balance. So yes, university is entirely possible, but it cannot be at the detriment of your health. And talk to your uni, because my experience of uni is, especially coming from a place where academia for me was, I thought it was a no-go area. I love it. I absolutely love it now. And it's not easy, but it's worth the juggling that I have to do to be there. Even if sometimes I do feel tired and I do feel like this is too much. It's too much along with my mental health. That's when I talk to uni or I talk to my team and we find a way forwards. And keeping those boundaries, which I'm working on. Can't say I'm amazing at, but working on. In the, okay, I need to take a break from my mental health right now, or I'm feeling better. Let's go again. Talk to your uni, talk to your people. I hope this has been helpful. If anyone has any comments, then pop them in. Anyone has any more questions, then pop them in the comments.